Hey world, Graham here from the recordingrevolution.com, and today I want to talk to you about drum overheads, how to get a pro sounding drum overhead in your mix. So this isn't a recording tutorial, it's more of a mixing tutorial. When you've got your drum overheads, either that you recorded or you were given to mix, and at that point you can't adjust the mic placement, you can't adjust the room. Even if it was a well-placed drum overhead, there's always a little bit of work that can be done on the mixing side of things to really give you that drum sound that you're hearing on a lot of your favorite records. And it took me a while to kind of figure this out because I would spend a lot of time getting a well-mic'd drum kit and really good overheads, but there was always something inevitably missing. And it's funny because in essence, I've learned this backwards. This is a way people process overheads on the way into Pro Tools or the way into tape on the recording side of things when you're tracking through a console or through a bunch of channel strips. And it's sort of an EQ move. But if you don't have a channel strip and you're recording right into your audio interface, you can do this after the fact in mixing. Here's a song where we've got some stereo overheads. And these are actually a good example because I think these are pretty well recorded. A little more reverberant. I don't know how far away these overheads are. You can hear a lot of the room, but they're pretty clear and they sound good. But if you're not used to doing this, you might not notice some of the problems. And the problems are some of the resonances in that room that could be cleaned up. If you want that really crisp, polished Pro Studio sound, it's really a matter of taking away some of the room, okay? So here's what's going on with my channel strip processing here. Take a listen to the before and after, and then I'll show you what I've done. Right, pretty drastic difference. You notice the drums get brighter, but really I want to show you the biggest thing that's no longer in the drums after the processing, and that's kind of what's making the difference here. So if you ignore the first module here, this is the virtual channel console collection from Steven Slate. This isn't really much of what you're hearing. This is more of a cumulative effect on all the tracks. Pay attention really to these three modules, two of which are EQs and one is a compressor. So all this is EQ, and then a smidge of compression. But the bulk of it, the change you're hearing is an EQ move. So if you have an EQ, it doesn't matter which one, you can do this. The bulk of the work is happening here on the SSL. And what I'm doing is taking away a few key frequencies. So let me mute these other things here. And what I've got, I've removed 3 frequencies on these 2 EQs and boosted 2 frequencies. I've removed 677 hertz, and I've removed 379 hertz. Take a listen to what these sound like. I'm going to boost them so you can hear an extreme boost of what they are. What I was doing was sweeping around in that low mid to mid range and boosting crazy like this to hear where the drum sounded really cheap, where you could hear the problems with the room. Like, yeah, that's not a great sounding room. And when you extreme boost and sweep around, you know, anywhere really, this is kind of where I started, you can hear that nastiness. Kind of boxiness. So I said, I don't like that. So I took out 2 dB of that. Okay. And then I did the same thing down here at 379, 380. Take a listen to this. It's sort of, again, slapping on that snare, but also when the cymbals are crashing, it's like this woofiness, this constant ringing in the cymbals that's there. It's like a frequency, it's a harmonic that's in that crazy wash of the cymbals. When you hit a cymbal, you get so many different frequencies resonating, and that just sounded like this weird low-mid stuff that just wasn't contributing anything useful to the sound. In fact, it was adding nastiness, so I didn't like this. That ended up being around 380. So I took out some of that. Okay. I also rolled off everything below 98. Okay. So before you had a little bit more bottom end. This removes a lot of that low end that will allow your kick drum to sound bigger when you take it out at the overhead. Okay, so I took those two frequencies out, I rolled off some low end, and then I did a high shelf boost, a 1.5 dB, so not very much, at around 8.5K. So this is just opening up the cymbals a little bit, okay? And these four EQ moves, cutting out two frequencies, high passing up to 100, so it's cutting out even more frequencies, 3 cuts, and 1 slight boost. You can listen to the difference that just that EQ makes. A little cleaner, a little clearer. Then I went a step further and realized there was more EQing I wanted to do. I was out of modes up here and knobs, so I grabbed another EQ. This is the Neve from Slate, and I found a frequency down here at 500 that sounded nasty. Take a listen to this. Just more boxiness. So I took out 500 by a few dB. Then I also did another shelf boost here of 1.5 dB, and I can't even tell you what frequency this is at. So someone who's smarter than me that knows what these Neve EQ high shelves are set at, you can tell me. But I did a little bit more of a boost. So this added some more clarity as well, removing more of the boxiness and a little more top end. So before. You can hear what taking out that 500 did for these overheads, right? And then I just followed that by a little bit of gentle compression. This FG401 is a very smooth VCA style compressor, meaning it's not really aggressive. And I've set it at a 2-to-1 ratio with just a little bit of makeup gain because I'm just smacking the drums a little bit. It's doing 1 dB of gain reduction and then doing 1 dB of makeup gain. It adds a little bit more punch to the drums. So these were 3 subtle moves, but in essence, there's 3 things I'm doing here. If you lump all the EQ cuts together, think of that as one move. And this is the biggest move. Remove the frequencies that are in your overheads that don't belong. And how do you know it doesn't belong? You just start boosting anything in the low mids to upper mids and searching and sweeping around for things that your mic captured or your mic's captured in your room that just don't sound pleasing. And then do yourself a favor and notch them out by 2 to 3 dB. And if you find the 2 to 3 frequencies that just are adding nastiness to your mix and you carve them out, 2 things happen. 1, your track cleans up, which makes everything sound better. Your snare drum sounds better, your cymbals sound better, your toms sound better in your overheads because now there's less masking it. 2, you open up more headroom. You freed up more volume and more headroom in your track, so you can slightly compensate by doing a gentle, and I mean gentle, 1.5 to 2 dB shelf boost on the top end, which will allow your cymbals to have a little bit more enhanced top end. And then follow it with some gentle compression to just squeeze what's left over, this more cleaned up, more opened up sound, and what you get is a drastic result. And that overhead sound is a much more professional drum overhead sound, which is going to give you more clarity and it's going to give you that crisp, just clear drum sound because the drum overheads are rarely by themselves, right? You're adding them to, let's say, the close kicks and snare mics. So just listen to the kicks, snares, and overheads now, and I'm going to bypass all the EQ and compression on the overheads, and you can hear how the whole drum sound changes. It changes the sound of the kick and the snare because they're all affecting each other. huge, right? You notice it in the snare especially. Why is the snare sounding way fatter and way clearer when we're not doing anything to the snare mic at all? All we're doing is tweaking the EQ and compression on the overhead. And that's a huge point I wanted to make. When you do this work on the overhead, you clean it up, you open it up, and you get rid of the nastiness, it allows your close mic snares to just really jump out of the speakers, and it makes your whole drum sound better. So the Pro drum overhead style, I mean, this is evident on so many records. You're going to hear this, and for the longest time I was always trying to figure out why my drums didn't sound quite the same, and I was focusing a lot on the kick mic, the snare mic, when it's really the overheads. If you get those cleaned up like this, you'll get that Pro style sound that you're looking for. Hope that gives you something to think about as you're working on your drum tracks this weekend. Leave me a comment, let me know what you thought of the video. Like it if you liked the video. If you're new, subscribe to the videos, that way you'll know when the next one's coming out. And if you want more great content on recording and mixing and anything that's not even just what we're doing here on YouTube, join the mailing list and download my free ebook, The #1 Rule of Home Recording. It's absolutely free. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.